Imagine walking down a dark alley alone, with the chilling wind biting at your nape. It's an ordinary night, just like any other in our small, secluded town, nestled amidst the somber shadows of the towering mountains. The moon, a pale ghostly orb in the sky, is the only source of light, casting long, eerie shadows that dance and flicker like phantoms in the night. In this quiet, ordinary town lives our protagonist, a man of logic and reason, a man who prides himself on his rationality. He's the kind of person who scoffs at ghost stories, who dismisses folklore as nothing more than the fanciful tales of the superstitious. To him, the supernatural is nothing more than a myth, a figment of overactive imaginations. But you see, our town is anything but ordinary. Strange things have been happening here, things that defy logic and reason. Whispers of unseen terrors echo through the narrow cobblestone streets. There are tales of objects moving on their own, of shadows that seem alive, of eerie voices that whisper in the dead of the night. The townsfolk, they believe in these tales. They speak in hushed tones of the unseen terror that lurks in the darkness, a malevolent entity that preys on the fear of the living. Our protagonist, however, remains skeptical. He brushes off these tales as nothing more than the product of overactive imaginations, the result of too many late-night ghost stories. He laughs off the townsfolk's fear, choosing to believe in science and logic rather than the supernatural. But every skeptic has a breaking point, a moment when their beliefs are challenged, when the line between the rational and the irrational blurs. So here we are, on the threshold of our story, where the ordinary meets the extraordinary, where logic meets the supernatural. But our protagonist, he didn't believe in any of this until that fateful night. A night like any other, our protagonist found himself walking down a path he had traversed 100 times, but something felt different. The usual vibrancy of the city had given way to an eerie, unsettling silence. He was alone in a world that had suddenly turned alien, as if a veil of foreboding had descended, separating him from the world he knew. The path, once a comforting stretch of familiarity, now seemed shrouded in mystery. Each step echoed ominously, as if the very ground beneath him was amplifying his solitude. A chill wind blew, rustling the leaves, the only sound in this uncanny quietude. He could almost hear his own heartbeat, thudding in his chest like a drumbeat of dread. That's when he noticed the streetlight ahead, flickering intermittently, casting an intermittent glow on the path. It was as if time itself was stuttering, caught between the now and the next. The hair on the back of his neck stood up, as a sudden drop in temperature enveloped him. An icy cold, like the touch of an unseen specter. It was a cold that went beyond the physical, seeping into his very soul. A shadow then caught his eye. It was there, yet not there. A murky figure that seemed to mirror his movements. A chill ran down his spine, a primal fear creeping into his consciousness. The shadow, an intangible presence, was following him, matching his pace, step for step. The city had turned into a haunted playground, the silence now punctuated by the distant howling of a stray dog. His heart pounded in his chest, his breaths coming in short gasps. The path ahead, once so familiar, now seemed endless, leading him deeper into the heart of this chilling anomaly. And then, he heard it, a whisper in the wind, a name, his name. It was a voice, soft yet clear, a spectral call that hung in the air, leaving him rooted to the spot, his blood turning to ice. The night had spoken and it knew him by name. Frozen in fear, he stood still, the whisper growing louder with each passing second. An icy cold shiver ran down his spine as the whisper transformed into a voice, clear and haunting. It was the voice of the unseen entity, the invisible horror that had been lurking in the shadows of the town. The protagonist, though terrified, found himself intrigued. The voice seemed to bear the weight of centuries, echoing with an eerie melody of sadness and despair. It began to recount a tale of its past, of how it once was a part of the living world, a world filled with laughter, joy, and love. But a dreadful fate had befallen it, leading it to become an unseen terror, a specter lost in the annals of time. The entity told of its life, once vibrant and full, now reduced to whispers in the dark. It spoke of betrayal, of a love lost, and of an untimely death that had bound it to the ethereal plane, forever a prisoner of its own sorrow. The protagonist's heart ached for the entity, his fear slowly replaced by a deep sense of empathy. But the entity's tale took a dire turn. It spoke of an impending doom, a catastrophe that was to befall the town. It warned the protagonist, its voice trembling with urgency. The horror that it had become was not of its own making but a result of a curse, a curse that was about to awaken once more, threatening to engulf the town in its deadly embrace. The entity, through its whispers, implored the protagonist to act, to break the cycle of horror and save the town from the impending doom. It hinted at clues, at ways to counter the curse, its voice a desperate plea echoing in the darkness. With a final whisper, the entity vanished, leaving our protagonist alone in the chilling silence. The stillness of the night was broken only by the protagonist's pounding heart. He was left with a burden of knowledge, a mission to save his town, and the haunting memory of the encounter. Shaken to his core, he rushed back home, the entity's words echoing in his mind. Our protagonist, feet pounding against the cobblestone streets, heart pounding against his ribs, could not escape the haunting prophecy that had been laid bare before him. Unseen forces, unknown dangers, and an uncertain future conspired to cast a pallor of dread over his very existence. He gathered the town folks at the break of dawn, in the heart of their quaint little hamlet. His words tumbled out in a torrent, a tale of a spectral encounter and a chilling prophecy. The town folks listened, their faces a study in skepticism and disbelief. They dismissed it as a figment of his imagination, a story spun by an overactive mind. But the entity's prophecy was not to be brushed aside so easily. The town, once a beacon of peace and tranquility, was soon plagued by a series of strange occurrences. The once clear and sparkling river ran red, the crops wilted overnight, the cattle fell ill, and an eerie silence fell over the town. The once skeptical town folks could no longer ignore the uncanny happenings around them. The prophecy had come to pass. The entity's words, once dismissed as a mere hallucination, held a bone-chilling truth. The town was in the grip of an unseen terror, just as the entity had warned. Fear replaced skepticism, dread replaced disbelief, and the town folks turned to the only person who had communicated with the unseen, our protagonist. Their faces, once filled with scorn and ridicule, now held a desperate plea for help. He who was once an outcast, was now their only hope. The town folks, their fate hanging in the balance, looked to him to save them from the terror that had befallen them. He had to face the entity again. He had to find a way to save his town. As fear gripped the town, they turned to the only person who had communicated with the unseen, our protagonist. And so, with the weight of the prophecy and the fate of his town on his shoulders, our protagonist stepped into the unknown. With the weight of the town's fate on his shoulders, he decided to confront the unseen. The air was thick with a cold dread, as our hero mustered the courage to face the entity. His footsteps echoed in the silence of the night, each step a testament to his resolve. The unseen terror, the force that had cast a long opaque shadow over the town, was not a monster to be slain, but a darkness to be understood. He reached out, not with weapons, but with words, with empathy. He spoke of the town's love for its history, its respect for the spirits that came before, and its deep remorse for any inadvertent wrongs. He bared his soul to the unseen, his words sincere and resonating in the stillness. Slowly the chilling wind subsided, the eerie silence gave way to the nocturnal sounds of life. The unseen entity, now understood, retreated, its wrath quelled by the protagonist's heartfelt plea. The town's fate had been altered, the impending doom averted by a single act of bravery, not in battle, but in peace. The protagonist's confrontation with the unseen entity was a testament to his courage. He managed to appease the entity, saving the town from the impending doom. The unseen terror was no more, a victory not of dominance but of understanding. The unseen terror was no more, but the chilling memories lingered. The town was safe, but the echoes of the encounter, the chilling brush with the unseen, would forever be etched into the town's history. Life in the small town returned to normal, but the tale of the unseen terror lived on. Our protagonist, once an ordinary citizen, now stood as a beacon of courage, a hero in the eyes of the many. Yet an icy shiver of unease still lingered in the air. Whispers of the entity's presence echoed in hushed tones, a chilling reminder of the horror that once was. No one could say for certain if the unseen terror was truly gone. The unseen terror was gone, or was it?